Hello, people. How's it going? Well, this will be part two of what I consider the ideal church, which I'm not sure I like the term because idealism, unfortunately, in this day and age, is viewed as somehow some radical notion that can't be achieved or shouldn't be attempted or whatever. But that is the title I have. What I have written down and where my notes are. I don't think I have all this in my head, do you? Most of it's in my head, but I have notes over there to guide me. And I'm not going to memorize verses. I can just write them down and well, the verses anyway, not the actual words, because I can look that up later. But anyway, the ideal church, as I said before in the last video, part two and part one, begins with the Bible. It begins with the Bible. I do this way deliberately because it's just King James. The Bible is about 35 years old. That's how long I've had it. Might be older than that, but I know it's not the first one I have. I know it's close, but it's not. It begins with a foundational idea that the Bible means what it says, and says what it means. I think the church seems to have forgotten that little detail, and if you bring that little idea up with some of them, they get upset with you and mad, and they like to accuse you of all sorts of things, like you expect some perfect idealized, a perfect idealistic church. Well, the Bible is about trying to achieve some ideal state of being, foundation, blueprint of life. Be holy, for I am holy. It says, 1 Peter 1:16, and in Leviticus 11:44. I mean, be holy, for I am holy is quite a blueprint for the expectations and the obligations that God has for us. So I get kind of annoyed when I hear people tell me that we don't have a right to them. Well, then we might as well just tell God, you have no business telling us to be holy. Because we can't achieve it, you have no business saying it, and you need to just tone down your rhetoric and telling us to be holy like you, because we're not going to do it because we can't. That's not what the Bible tells us. It tells us, be holy, for I am holy. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 16, thus it is written, be ye holy, for I am holy. Institution that I'm making this up, I'm going to read it. Leviticus 22:11. Let's see. Yeah, I think it's right here. 21, sorry. Lost numbers. Yeah, I need new glasses, people. I'm sorry. These glasses are over 5 years old. I need new glasses. Yes, let's see. 22:21. Why am I having a problem? Oh, that's why, because I can't read my own freaking handwriting. My handwriting is atrocious, which is why I prefer people read things after I've typed it. Okay. For I am the Lord your God. You shall therefore sanctify yourselves, as you shall be holy, for I am holy. Neither shall ye defile yourselves with any manner of creeping thing that creepeth on the earth, or philosophy, or anything that isn't biblical. The idea that we have no obligations or expectations of each other, of the church, of ourselves, of God, is nonsense. Be holy, for I am holy is the ultimate blueprint of what we are supposed to be trying to achieve. Now, is it possible in our sinful flesh? Not going to happen. Should we try? Yes. If I cut this video short, it's because people are home and I might get interrupted. Hopefully, I'm not going to get interrupted. I tried to do this when no one's around, but it didn't work out that way yesterday. But anyway, Adam and Eve knew the expectations God had, and they were obligated to obey God and don't avoid the true tree of good and evil, the knowledge of good and evil. They decided to listen to the snake. Tell them, oh, God didn't say that. He didn't mean that. You're not really obligated, and he really doesn't have expectations that you'll actually not eat it, and so on and so forth. And look where that got us. Adam and Eve knew the obligation. Don't touch it. They knew it was going to happen. They decided to not listen. Plain and simple. Eve may have eaten the fruit first, but Adam ate it second, and Adam and Eve are guilty on both accounts. They're equally guilty. I mean, once they decided to listen to the snake, the devil, God told them what was going to happen. This is the expectation you're going to get if you eat this fruit. Excuse me. I don't like gas. I think it's the tea. Be holy there because I am holy is what we're trying to achieve. Adam and Eve were perfect before the fall. They weren't holy. Only God is holy. But they were as close to perfection as you can get. I mean, and yet they failed because they forgot their obligations to God, and they forgot the expectations that God had for them, just like the church does. Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel. I thought about this today at work. They both knew the expectations of the sacrifice. They knew they were obligated to do it, what the sacrifice was supposed to be. And they were expected to bring their best. Abel did that. Cain did not do that. And he killed his brother. His obligation to his brother was not to kill him, was to be a brother to him. I at work today, I had this all in my head. I should have written down better notes. But Cain chose to ignore his obligations to God and to his brother. He chose to ignore the expectations of God and his brother. He was his brother's keeper. He forgot what that means. You know what that means? Love thy neighbor as thyself. That means, be a brother. Cain failed because he rationalized away any obligation and any expectations he had because his sacrifice was not what God required. He wanted to do it his way, like the church does today. I'm not liking this an analogy because I know when I did it at work this morning, usually it's been a long day, I had a better analogy in my head of how this would go. But I think Cain felt that he had no obligation to God or his brother to do anything other than what he wanted to do. That's what I'm trying to say. He felt that he was above being obligated to do anything God wanted or wanted to play sacrifice, and he had no obligation to Abel whatsoever to do anything other than to kill him because he was jealous. I mean, Abel understood the obligations he had and the expectations God had of him, which was why his sacrifice was accepted and Cain's wasn't. Because Cain was full of himself and Abel wasn't. Cain decided that he was going to not listen. He was going to convince himself that what he wanted to do was the right thing to do, and God better just like it. God has no. And another thing is, I think the modern church would say, well, God, you really don't have a right to make Abel or Cain have an obligation to you because you knew he wasn't going to do it. He wasn't capable of doing it. Well, you can't. You have no business having an obligation or even expecting anything from Cain because he's a fallen, sinful creature, and well, you should just love him and so on and so forth. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's what the modern church has done. It has basically taken Cain and think, yeah, it's okay, Cain. You're not perfect. We're all fallible. We can't do anything about it. But God loves you, and just keep your eyes on the Lord, and don't try to improve or anything like that. Don't actually try to do as God tells you or asks you to do, because you really can't. So don't even try. Just muddle through and you'll be fine. But yes, I'll come back to Cain and Abel once I get this one more thought. Because when I was work today, I had it all figured out in my head what I was going to say about that. And it made a lot more sense than I just got done rambling. But the modern church would tell Cain, don't worry about it, Cain. You're not perfect. You're a sinner. You can't do anything about it. Just love God. Just go through the motions. You'll be fine. Well, that's what Abel did, and look where it got him. But anyway, when God gave the Israelites, the Jews, the 10 Commandments. 10 Commandments are the biggest 10 obligation expectations you're ever going to read. I mean, and they said, okay, we'll follow them. And of course, they were going to because they were sinful. Anyway, but the 10 Commandments are an obligation, are an expectation of our behavior toward God and toward ourselves. And when the church, once again, tries to convince itself that it's not under the 10 Commandments, or we don't have to follow them, or we don't have to do this, that, and the other, they're telling the 10 Commandments, well, we're under grace now. We don't have to follow them, because that's the logical conclusion. Eventually, you'll convince yourself that hypocrisy is okay, and lying is okay, and stealing is okay, and murder is okay, and covetousness is okay, and blasphemy is okay, and so on and so forth. Because we're all sinners, we can't do anything about it, we can't change anything. So why try? We're not obligated to follow the commandments anymore. We're not. God doesn't expect us to. Yeah, actually, He does. Now, under the law, no, but we're still obeying commandments. They haven't gotten rid of the commandments. Commandments are still there. They haven't gone anywhere, and they're not going to go anywhere, as far as God is concerned. I mean, I may not be making this very clear to this. It's been a long day. It's 8 o'clock at night. I am tired. I probably should have put this off one more day. But the church acts as if the 10 Commandments are only an obligation or an expectation if you want them to be. Not that they are. And the church seems to act as if somehow the Old Testament is just a bunch of stories and don't really mean anything. Well, yeah, they do. You can't have church without the Old Testament. Jesus didn't teach from the New Testament. He taught from the Old Testament. In fact, Jesus quoted Genesis more than anything else. And the church, the ideal church, I'll get back to that, I promise. The ideal church understands that the 10 Commandments are an obligation. We are expected to obey them. We're not under the law. We're not under the penalty of the law. We're still expected to obey them. Still expected to use them as a guideline, a blueprint of our lives. The Ten Commandments haven't gone anywhere. And the church likes to say, well, I'm under grace, I'm under the law anymore. Well, that's true. You're not under the law of sin, but you still need to not kill people, or lie, or steal, or covet, or blaspheme, or break the Sabbath. Those things are still important. In the ideal church in my world, we'd keep the Sabbath. By the way, that's Saturday, not Sunday. My ideal church would be we'd be meeting on Saturday, because that's the Sabbath, not Sunday. Sunday's never going to be the Sabbath. God didn't change the Sabbath to Saturday, Sunday. It's Saturday. Okay? Friday evening to Saturday evening is the Sabbath. And church needs to go back to the Sabbath. And if I ran a church, then that's what we would do. The church is very good at making the Old Testament obsolete. Because the Old Testament scares the church. I think it does. I think it terrifies them. I mean, there are so many examples of how much obligated we are to each other and toward God. How much we should have expectations of ourselves and each other and of God. The New Testament is a fulfillment of the Old Testament. We cannot have one without the other. I mean, the law has gone nowhere. We are not under the law anymore. We're under grace. I get that part. I don't argue with that part. At least that makes sense. But the church seems to treat it as if somehow we can't learn anything from it, or that we should, kind of gloss over it, or that we should pretend it doesn't mean as much as it used to. No, if that were true, the Old Testament would have just disappeared by now. The ideal church, in my mind, as I view it, would teach the Old Testament. It would start with the Old Testament. It would show the obligations. The Bible is full of obligations. There's another word for it that's called loyalty. So one thing the church does not teach is loyalty. Loyalty seems to be a frightening word to the church. People who go to church, and people who preach in churches and teach, the word loyalty just frightens the hell out of them, or hell into them, because I'm not really sure sometimes. I ran a church, loyalty, friendship, those words would mean something. A modern church, it doesn't mean anything. They're just words. It's like when they say fellowship and family and all those other words they use. They mean nothing. They're cliches. They're just words to use. And you wonder why there are people like me and there are people who I could name, why we don't want to do the church anymore, why we just don't care. Because we are tired of words like loyalty and fellowship and personal relationship with and family and community of believers. We're tired of those words having been turned into cliches, into just slogans, catchphrases. Something we only do on Sunday from 9 to about 12:30, and sometimes Wednesdays from 6:30 to 9:30. And the rest of the time, we don't really. No. We're islands. The church has become a bunch of cliched islands. We don't fellowship. There are no true friendships in churches. They don't exist. No, they don't. I've watched how some of you people interact. I've watched people come into that building and they all have this robotic look on their faces. Like, okay, I'm here, I will go sit down, I will listen, then I will leave. The ideal church is alive. It feels alive. It feels like this is where God wants us to be as in a building. This is where people who believe in something are going to come and learn something. And one of the biggest problems, I think, is that the Bible is not, as I keep coming back to, this is the foundation. This is the foundation of a realistic church, of an idealistic church, of the church of the apostles of the Old Testament. I'm looking for my verse. I wrote it down. Okay. It's. Let's see. I'm going to be doing this a lot. I may turn this one into a part 3. I may deal with other things on the same subject. I'm already up at 20 minutes, and I've gone longer than I had planned to, which is fine. I don't really mind. 4:6. Hosea 4:6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee. That thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God. I will also forget thy children. The church is destroying itself because it doesn't believe in this book. No, it does not. What it believes is, as I've said last video, on the last part 1, they believe in the commentaries, they believe in the footnotes of what this book says. Basically, Adam and Eve listened to the footnotes. They listened to the footnotes from the devil telling them that God didn't actually say that. Cain and Abel, Cain listened to what he wanted it to be. He rewrote what God wanted from him and said, nah, I'm going to give God what I want to give him. It doesn't work that way. I mean, the church, I am going to have to make this into more parts. I'm already can tell I'm going to have to make this into at least into maybe a 4-part, maybe a 5-part thing, but anyway. But the church, I don't think the church has any idea what it's doing to itself. It doesn't teach loyalty. It doesn't teach friendship. No, it doesn't. It teaches convenient friendship, and convenient loyalty, and convenient this, that, and the other. An ideal church teaches loyalty and friendship and apologetics. And if I have to explain what apologetics is, I'll explain it later. You should already know. But James 1:23, let's see. I always like this verse because obviously it's. But be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. And that, I think, is the key reason, one of the key reasons, the problem with the church. They like to hear about the Word of God. They like to hear a good sermon that keeps them entertained, but they have no intention of obeying it. Why should they? No one's holding them accountable for anything, and they certainly aren't holding themselves accountable for anything. They're not holding themselves responsible for anything. They're going through the motions. I've watched people in churches. I've watched them come in and go. It's robotic. It's zombie-like. There's nothing alive in them. I mean, be doers of the word, not just listeners. The church has now gotten now the church is saying, well, we can't do anything about it, but at least listen. But don't try to change anything. But you can at least listen. But don't do anything to make it any, don't do anything. Just listen. Don't attempt to do anything to make other people uncomfortable. I mean, I don't even like using the words church because it's too general. When I say it, I mean the modern church. I mean that aspect of the church that is very religious but has no clue what it believes or why, and can't defend it, can't explain it, can't do anything. And that's apologetics. That's not what's being taught. James was very clear. Be hearers of the word and not a doer. And not just a doer. But be doers of the word, not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. And the church has been deceiving itself for a long time. It thinks all that stuff it's doing is obeying the word. That's not. The Great Commission is the least thing the church does. It just is. It is. Because it requires something they have no intention of doing. And that is basically stepping outside of what they want to do and not want to do. Sort of like Cain and Abel. The church is turning into Cain. Whereas Abel was trying to do what he was supposed to do because God said, "This is what I want you to do," and Cain said, "No, I'm going to do it my way." I mean, well, as I said, to me, one of the key things is the Bible. I think loyalty needs to be taught. I think true loyalty, true friendship. When I look in the churches, I don't see friendships. I see people who know each other. I see people who on Sunday say hi, how you doing? They chit chat back and forth, and then they go their separate ways until they meet up again next Sunday. That's not fellowship. That's not family, and that's not loyalty, and that's not friendship. I'm going to keep mentioning it because I think that's one of the biggest reasons people leave. Most actually, the biggest reason a lot of people go to church is friendship, and they are very disappointed by the fact that people really don't want to be friends. They want to be members of the church, but they don't want to be friends because loyalty and love thy neighbor and all those other things are fine as long as they don't actually have to do it. I mean, you know, be ye doers of the word. I see most Christians being a lot of hearers and really justifying why they can't do anything. And believe me, I've heard the excuses. And I am going to stop at 30 minutes. Because I knew this was going to take longer than I thought. And I haven't even got to half my notes that I was going to do. That's okay. I don't mind. 30 minutes per one. If I do more than part 3, that's fine. But, let's see. Let's see. I did that first, did that. Let me do Matthew. Even though, let's see, Matthew. I'm gonna, let's see, Matthew 22, 21. I wrote down the right one, hopefully. What is to be a church, a member of the church community, of the Christian community? A lot of the problems is that politics is taking over. It's taking over this. This is less important. I think over a third of the church is more political than biblical. I think a third of the church is a bunch of religious people who know or don't care that all they're doing is going through the motions. And I think a small percentage actually think this book means what it says. And I lost my place, but that's okay. One, they said unto him Caesar's, and he says, therefore unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's. Unfortunately, the church reads more like this: render unto your political party the things that are your political parties, and unto God things that you may or may not want to actually do at some point. Okay, that's basically what the church has done. I think the number one cause of why the church is dying and falling apart, and people are tired of it, people are not learning or growing or anything else, is politics has become more important than this. This is not the foundation of the church anymore. A third of the people in the church don't really believe this book. They believe whatever political party they follow. That's their gospel. That's their beliefs. Not this. Their political party. I've met them. I've run into them. I've talked to them. They are the most. Jesus is hardly ever mentioned, and if at all, when they talk. When they talk, who's ever rarely ever mentioned? The author of this book. But they'll talk about their politics all day long. And you wonder why your children are leaving churches left and right, why your kids know more about your politics than where you stand biblically? Because you've rendered onto your political party far more than onto your God. I'm going to cut it short because I'm at 30 minutes. I will do part 2 either tomorrow or Wednesday because I only did half of the stuff I wanted to do. But I got a little rambly, so I will continue this I hope you people almost enjoy it. Let me know. Stay out of trouble, because you know I'm not going to. I can't, and I never will, because I just can't. You have a good day, people. Oh, my stomach. My stomach's not doing well. Thank you. Later.